President Trump has pardoned some of his most loyal allies from the 2020 era, all accused of trying to aid in his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results when he lost the White House to Joe Biden. On the pardon list, former Trump attorneys Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, as well as the president's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. In all, the Justice Department says that 77 people received what they're describing as, quote, full, complete, and unconditional pardons related to all of this. CNN's Kevin Liptak is at the White House for us on this one. Kevin, what more are you hearing about this? Is the White House saying more specifically on these pardons?
They're not saying more at this point, and you're right, this is quite a lengthy list, 77 names in all, many of whom will be familiar to anyone who's been kind of following this saga for the last 5 years. The president's pardon attorney posted the paperwork on social media last night. I think it's important to note that none of the names have actually been charged with a federal crime. So in a lot of ways, this is a symbolic move, but it still just underscores President Trump's efforts to kind of rewrite the history of the 2020 election. And I'll just read for you a little bit of the sort of preamble, which is pretty striking when it describes its intent here. It says, "This proclamation ends a grave national injustice perpetrated upon the American people following the 2020 presidential election and continues the process of national reconciliation." And just to tick through some of the names here, Rudy Giuliani, of course, the former New York City mayor who helped lead the effort to pressure states to reject Biden's victories. You also have Sidney Powell, who's the conservative attorney who worked with Giuliani, Mark Meadows, who was the president's chief of staff at the time, Jenna Ellis, who also worked closely with Rudy Giuliani, Boris Epstein, who's a longtime Trump advisor. You have John Eastman and Kenneth Chesebro, who were two attorneys who helped kind of devise the strategy of pressuring Mike Pence to try and overturn the election on January 6, 2021. And Burt Jones, who's the lieutenant governor of Georgia and who was also a fake elector after the 2020 election. And so, although none of these names are charged with federal crimes, many have actually been charged in individual states, and the president cannot reverse those charges. And obviously, this is not going to do anything to reverse Rudy Giuliani's pretty significant legal and financial issues, in particular when it comes to those two Georgia election workers who filed a defamation suit against him. And so, a significant step, but a symbolic one as well, and it would also preclude future administrations from trying to go after these individuals. Now, the pardon specifically states that it doesn't apply to President Trump himself, but it does apply to this broad swath of people